Hi, Rita here. In this second video, I will explain how to build more complex formulas for conditional formatting. I will start with one objective and two different formula solutions. The first formula is equals $G5 equals $G$1. $G5 is in the top row of the range. The dollar sign before the G means that it only references the column G. There is no dollar sign before the 5, and so it is a relative reference. Therefore, $G5 can relatively become G6, G7, G8, and so on to the end of the range. If it is true that one of these values is equal to the absolute value in G1, then it will format. I will type in USA, and all of the rows that have USA in column G will be highlighted or conditionally formatted. The problem with this is that this is an exact comparison. For example, if I were to put a blank space in cell G6 before USA, it would not be an exact match and the formatting would disappear. As you can see, the formatting went away. There is another solution that uses a more complex formula. It will work better because it only requires a partial match for the row to format. That is coming up next. The formula that I think works much better uses a search function nested in an if function. I will show you how it works. In cell B1, I can input a partial value and it will highlight all of the rows with the partial value in column B. Let's say I'm looking for a code and I only remember that it has AR in it. It doesn't matter where the AR is in the cell, I don't need an exact match for it to format. As you can see, I've got AR in the first position in the cell. In B16, it's in the last, and there's a space in there. It works very well as a search function. I also have VLOOKUP hooked up to the same input cell so that if there is an exact match, a price value will appear. Let's just say I'm looking for AR2. I can change the input right here and add the number 2. And the value of 3 appears. So in other words, if I know the exact code, I can put it in and VLOOKUP will display the related price. If I don't know the exact code, I can put in a partial code and that will display all of the rows with that partial code in the cell. I will quickly explain VLOOKUP and then I will walk you through building this type of conditional formatting. The first argument in VLOOKUP is the cell address where the value is, in this case, B1. The second argument is the range, as you can see it with the red border. The third is the number of columns to the right where the value is, in this case, the 7th column in the range. And finally, the word false must appear as the last argument. VLOOKUP is literal. If there is a blank space before it, the code will not locate it, whereas the search function will. Now let's look at the details of this type of conditional formatting. You can see in B1, I have the letters DQ. It doesn't matter that these are not capitalized. If you see DQ anywhere in column B that is within the range, it will highlight the entire row. Now to look at the details of this, I will click a cell within the range and go to Conditional Formatting and select Manage Rules. To the right, you can see the range code under Applies To. Click on it to see the streaming dashes where the outline of the range is. You can see that this applies from B5 to H22. If you need to adjust the range, you may do so here. Now let's go to Edit Rule. You can see that the first argument of the if function is a nested search function. $B$1 is an absolute reference to the input cell in B1, where the value we wish to locate may be input. $B5 references the top row in the column to be evaluated within the range. So $B5 can become $B6, $B7, and so on. These cells will be evaluated. The connection between the formula and the range is that the formula must reference a cell address in the top row of the range, in this case, B5. It will not work right if you do not indicate a cell in the top row. Note that the words format value where this formula is true. Usually a true value comes from a logical formula that has a true or false result. Because of the search function, the result will be either true or value, and the value is if it cannot find a value match. Next, we will build one from scratch. The first thing to do for larger and more complex formulas is to build a practice formula and check if it works. So I'm going to build one right here. And that's what the formula looks like. I'm going to remove the double quotes. You could have a single quotes in front of it to check how it actually works. You can see that it has value as a result. That's because in the input box I have RR and this is JJ. So I'll change that to JJ. And we can see that the value is true. So we know that this formula works. Then we select the formula and put a single quote or a double quote in front of it. And that turns it into a text. Then from the formula bar, copy it to the clipboard. It is important to copy from the formula bar. You may select without the single quote, but if you include it, the single quote will have to be deleted later. Next, select the range. Go to Conditional Formatting and select New Rule. Select Use a formula to determine which cells to format. And select this box and Control V. I'm going to have to remove the single quote so that it actually works as a formula. And now I will format it. Let's give it blue and click OK. You can see I have JJ is already highlighted. If I were to select, put something else in there, for example, TT, you've got TT here and TT there. And of course I can put DQ in there. And I have that. So we know it works. It's always good to test it to make sure it works. I'll leave you with this step-by-step of how to create your own formula-driven conditional formatting.